Good evening and welcome. It's 7:03. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Council of Swan Valley West, held this 29th day of December in Council Chambers at 216 Main Street, Swan River, Manitoba. Present this evening, myself, Reeve Bill Gade. We have Deputy Reeve Brian Burick, Councillor Zbirun is here, and Councillor McGregor is here, and we have 3 councillors sending their regrets. We'll get to that in a moment with the notice of absence. We also have CAO Pat Ellingson here, and our dedicated podcast or webcast or whatever we call them these days, Jeremy's here too. Before we get any further, we're using the computers for the first time, so this may be a little rough tonight, but we'll just work through it. And it's a great learning experience. We have a fairly light agenda tonight, so it's a good time for us to learn this, and then when the other 3 are back, we're gonna look like experts. So I have a resolution. This is for the absences, so we're at 1.2 on the agenda. Be it resolved that notice of absence submitted by council members Councillor Blosha, Kushniryk and Terry Neely regarding the regular meeting of council held this 20th day of December 2022 shall be accepted as received. Is there a mover, please?
What do I do?
All you have to do is put up your hand.
Okay.
A seconder? Councillor Zbirun. Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favour? None opposed, that's carried. And even it'll show carried on your screen momentarily. Item 2, adopt the agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held this 29th day of December 2022 shall be adopted as I have presented. Does anybody have additions or changes they want to make, or are we good as is? If not, can I have a mover, please? Councillor McGregor. Seconder, please.
That's only 3 of us.
Yes. Any further discussion on the resolution? If not, those in favour? That's carried. We are moving to section 3, minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting held on November 28th, 2022 and the regular council meeting held December 13th, 2022 be adopted as presented. A mover, please. Councillor Zbirun, and someone to second the resolution. Councillor McGregor. So for this one, if you click those 2 adopt minutes things, you'll actually see the minutes on your screen. I don't know if you've had a chance to see them, so I'll give you a minute until everybody says they're ready. If any errors, omissions, changes, or if you're having trouble making them show up, let me know and we'll show you how to get them on the screen.
Just I'm missing about 3 or 4 letters to every second word or something.
Well, that's not bad.
It's right on the beginning, eh?
Yeah.
The rest is okay, I think. It's just...
I mean, you can see that one. You can make it out what it is, but just this.
What if you try, is there a plus and a minus button there? If you zoom in a little bit, would that help it maybe?
It's no big deal, just that it's,
Get your cursor up there and see if you can.
Zoom in and see if that makes it clearer.
Zoom in, you say?
Yeah. Not really. Oh, a little bit.
No, it's still...
Oh, there.
Still, yeah.
Well,
it's
better.
it's better, it's getting better.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oops, wait, it was better...
Yeah, there you go.
It was better at 90%. Is that what yours is? 90%
Yes.
is good.
90% is good.
Yeah. Yep.
90% is 100%, eh?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's good, no.
Okay.
Good, you good?
Yeah.
You're fine?
Yeah.
Councillor McGregor, are you still reading there?
Okay.
You good? Okay, any errors, omissions, changes? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favour? That is carried. Public Works tonight, Mr. Bobick's going to join us at about 9 p.m. He has the first part of his Public Works report we're going to do in the open. He's got quite a lot he can share publicly, but there's a couple items at the end of his report we'll do in camera. So we're gonna have him come at 9, so we can do everything open then, and then just move straight into in camera and have him with us. No delegations or petitions tonight. We moved to general business, agenda item 7.1. So updates to the emergency plan. The updates are listed there. I'll read the resolution and we can discuss a bit. Whereas the updates to the Swan Valley West emergency plan have been completed by the emergency coordinator Stan Anderson, therefore be it resolved that the updates shall be accepted as presented. The remover, please. Councillor Burick, someone to second the resolution. Councillor McGregor. So you'll see when you look at those updates, some of them are dated. This work was done towards the end of October, and there's already been some changes to some of those contacts that are listed. There was nothing changed in the plan here as far as our plans for response. It was just an update for the names and positions, the new councillors and such. But you'll see there's a couple spots there where things aren't entirely accurate, where other staff members have changed. So obviously he'll have to do some more updates at some point, but we must provide an update to it at least once a year by resolution. And as we talked earlier, this is kind of a clearinghouse meeting to get through those things that we have to do each year. So we do need to get the updates done even though they're not quite accurate. Then we'll do some more into this first part of next year. But we by law have to do this tonight, so we have the plan reviewed in 2022. Any discussion on this? I went through those updates, and certainly very good thing if you get a chance to get it printed out. There's some stuff in there that's worth having at home in case you ever need to know who to call and what to call for our municipality and other municipalities too. It's really interesting information. With that, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Item 7.2, Swan River Golf and Country Club. There is an attachment there, and the attachment is a request from them. It wasn't specifically to Swan Valley West. It was dropped off at all businesses and community members. They're hosting the Golf Bonanza in 2023. They're indicating 20% of the total proceeds will go to the CT scanner fund. The rest of the proceeds will go towards their savings for a new clubhouse. They're looking for us to provide sponsorship if we want to sponsor a hole. The price is $1,000. We would receive 5 tickets to the supper on the night of the event, advertising on the poster, as well as the day of the event, and we can also come to the designated hole and do something at the hole while they golf. We don't have, as far as I know, we don't have them listed normally on our sponsorship list. We don't normally give them money every year. And this wasn't, I guess this wasn't a request specifically to our council. It's just a form letter that was sent to a lot of places. So does anybody want to bring a resolution on it, or are we good to just have it as information and carry on?
We have the rest of the guys here before we make a decision on
We
this?
can certainly table it.
It's a
I
table.
think, yeah.
There's a neat button on here that says table, so I'm going to try that and see if it tables it. I'm not sure what it's doing, but it says it's doing something, so we'll give it a second.
The so-called button?
Yeah, well, I've got a view that allows to do the voting, where you guys can only see it,
Oh, okay.
so mine's a little different. We'll move on to 7.3 and it can figure out what it's doing there after the fact. The resolution. Be it resolved that the list of road signs be approved for ordering to replace lost or damaged signs. Is there a mover? Councillor Zbirun, and a seconder, please. Councillor Burick. So there is a list of road signs attached here. These are the little signs. Most of them are the little signs that go on top of the stop signs or just the signposts we have at the intersections. At one point they were all there. These are the ones that have been lost. It's a substantial list. There's 50, 60 of them on this list that are lost and can't be found and need to be replacements ordered.
I think I dropped the ball here. I was supposed to look for signs in Ward 1. I did look at some and I got some written down, but I mean there's 3 or 4 youth signs is basically all, so I don't know if
Okay,
it's gonna make a difference here or not.
we can always do more later.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry about that, I
That's
just
okay.
gotta,
There are some stop signs and yield signs on this list.
Oh, yes, and further down there is 10 stop. Why is it 10.0000? I digress. 10 stop signs, 6 yield signs, 24 cross brackets for the signs, 8 school bus stop ahead signs, 6 no through road signs, and 8 checkerboard with double arrow signs. Also on the list. There's a quote there, the second part is a quote from Airmaster. They're generally our sign supplier. So it indicates that this order of signs with taxes will be $4,116.71. 64 of the little signs is the answer. Each little sign is $24.85. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Moving to 7.4 Safety Committee list. So I don't have a resolution prepared on this. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do. The safety items list is there, it's sideways. We had this list come to a meeting previously, and we didn't pass it then. I'm not sure that we want to jump into this tonight either. The biggest ask on this list is 2 step ladders for the graders. But I haven't yet seen any indication that Public Works actually thinks those are the right ladders.
I thought we decided we were gonna get those step ladders. Did we get that on the 13th, no?
We haven't yet passed
Oh,
it.
okay, okay.
We looked at it, but then we just moved on without
Oh,
passing
okay,
a resolution.
okay.
There's insulated overalls there, there's safety jacket, and there's also the second quote is from Valley Door Systems. And that is for
We're at the door.
the shop door. This is for Swan River, I believe. To put a second man door into the shop because there's only 1 door there now and we're supposed to have 2. So the cost to put that new door in is $4,047.55. Do we want to approve any of this tonight? Do we want to wait on this until the 10th when everyone's here? What do we want to do?
Is it something we need, like the door is something,
You have to have probably a double door,
So-
don't you, for,
We have to have double door. We've had to have one for the last 20 years. And we
So,
haven't
I
had
mean-
for the last 20 years. So I guess what I'm saying gently is 14 days probably doesn't make a huge
No,
difference
I'd say we'll
after
order.
20 years.
Yeah.
So if you
Order.
want to just forward it on to the 10th meeting.
you order it
Or
now?
you want
We need it.
we need it. I mean,
Okay.
we're
I'd
probably
s-
gonna just order it
Yeah.
on the next
Yeah.
meeting anyway, so.
Let's see, order it now, so it's put into motion.
So then we will bring a resolution.
Yeah, because this is all stuff that has to be done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So be it resolved that we approve the quotes from Valley Door Systems in the amount of
$47.55.
55 to install a second man door at the Swan River shop. Okay, so I'll read it without this pausing. Be it resolved that we approve the quote from Valley Door Systems in the amount of $4,047.55 to install a second man door at the Swan River shop. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Burick, a seconder. Councillor McGregor. Any further discussion on the resolution? Not, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We will send the other items to the 10th meeting.
Okay.
Moving to 7.5. Mountain Dweller Media. Don't have a resolution for this, but I think we'll probably bring one here in a moment. This is a contract proposal for the 2023 year, although I notice on the bottom of it, it actually is proposed for the 2022 year. So before we can sign this, we'll get Mountain Driller to send us a revised one with the correct year on it. But it doesn't change any of the other details. That was the intention. It was just a matter of a typo in it. So this is what provides the videotaping of the council meetings. And it provides for the regular meetings as part of the contract at $70 a meeting. And then additionally, special meetings can be recorded for another $70 a meeting if it's in video. If for some reason the video equipment or personnel aren't available and it's audio only, then it's $40 for the special meetings. And there's some language in here that essentially says that Swan Valley West owns those recordings, so we keep them forever. Even if down the road we might have somebody else do them, there still are recordings because there are meetings. There's not a lot else here. There's some details of when they come out. Usually it's 3 or 4 days, and that's always worked well the past year. Certainly we've had a lot of people liking the ability to be able to watch the meetings online, because it gives them a chance to access the meetings without necessarily having to be here. I noticed the view count is going up quite substantially lately too. It's getting to be something more people are watching, so I would certainly think we want to renew this. Does anyone have other thoughts, or shall I start typing a resolution?
Type her up.
The other thing I noticed on it that was kind of weird is the contract date range is like the 10th to the 26th. To me, I think we'll ask them to just go first to the end of the year in case there's a special meeting on like the 5th or a special meeting on the 29th or something. You know, so it just covers the whole calendar year, but it won't make any difference to the price or such. A mover, please. Be it resolved that we renew the contract with Mountain Driller Media for 2023. Who would like to move that? Councillor Zbirun. A seconder, please. Councillor McGregor. Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, call the question. Those in favour? That is carried. 7.6, Cook Brothers contract extension. There's a letter attached there from Cook Brothers indicating they would be agreeable to extending their gravel crushing contract for the 2023 season. The way this works is that typically we tender gravel crushing and gravel hauling. We award a 1-year contract with an option for renewal for the 2nd year at the same price. So if the price was to change, it can't just be renewed, it has to be retendered. Before the end of the year, the contractor has to tell us that they're interested in doing this. So this letter has come now. Certainly, almost always it would be renewed for the 2nd year, especially considering that the pricing is fairly good pricing in that contract. There's a second contract though, the hauling contract, and so far as yet we don't have any indication they want to renew it. So unless that should change very shortly, we will probably be looking at having to tender that contract in the next few weeks. So we'll see if we get notification here before the 10th. Even if they're a day or two late, I think we'll be fine, but if by the 10th they haven't indicated they're wanting to renew, we'll probably at that meeting have to start looking at the tendering process for hauling gravel. Is everybody agreeable with extending that contract? Be it resolved, we extend the gravel crushing contract with Cook Brothers for the 2023 season. So resolution, be it resolved that we extend the gravel crushing contract with Cook Brothers for the 2023 season. Is there a mover? Councillor Burick. A seconder, please. Councillor McGregor moved his hand. He may not have put it very high, but he moved. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favour? That is carried. Next up, Bonita Water Plant. This one will probably be worth discussion. I'll read it, we'll move it, second it, and then discuss it. Be resolved that Council approve the purchase and installation of a time clock at the Bonita Water Plant to record water safety data. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Zbirun, a seconder. Councillor Burick, looks like you. So the thought process here, this has been discussed a couple times in the past couple of years, and it's been discussed a little bit with administration again. This isn't a time clock for the purpose of to record hours for pay. It's a time clock that uses a fingerprint to prove someone was in the building. There's been cases in the past where sometimes residents suggest, oh, no one went to the water plant today. And we have no way of saying, yes, they did. So this is about proving that, yes, we were there every single day. We did all of our due diligence. Everything's fine the way it should be. The cost of it, I believe, is around $300. So discussion, thoughts, do we want to do this? Is it a good idea?
Peace of mind, eh?
Yeah.
Well, and to me, like, there have been, people have said in the past, oh gee, we can use this to catch an employee. We're not here for that. We're here to say, when somebody has a concern that, oh, you didn't do your job right, we can say, no, we can prove our employee did their job right. And, you know, protect our staff and always have their back and say that, no, seriously, they were there, everything's as it should be. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the question. Those in favor? You guys are very easy and agreeable tonight. I haven't had to say not all yet. We're going to move to section 8. General checks. So we have the general checks here like we have the last couple meetings, so we have all the invoices and such, so we can answer any questions. You have in your listing the little summary sheet that shows them all. There are checks in here. You know what we should do? We have to skip, sorry, we can't do 8.1 yet. We have to go to 8.6 first, grant payments. 8.6, grant payments for 2022. One of the reasons we're here tonight instead of canceling the meeting is there's some grant payments that haven't been paid out in the 2022 year. So the resolution on that. Be it resolved that the following grant payments as provided in the 2022 budget be approved for payout. Swan Valley Historical Museum, $6,000. Alpine Cemetery, $500. Big Woody Community Center, $1,000. Fairdale Cemetery, $500. Kenville Hall, $1,000. Lavender Good Neighbor Center, $1,000. Swan Valley Food Bank, $500. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Burick, and a seconder, please. Councillor McGregor. All of these were provided for in the original budget that was passed by the previous council, and some grants have been paid out. These are the ones that haven't been. And the reason we went to 8.6 first is the checks are here tonight. So if we say yes to this, then we can go ahead and approve the checks for it and have it done yet this year. Any discussion on these amounts or who's getting the money? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That was carried. So we'll return to 8.1 now. We have our ducks in a row. For general checks, you'll notice in the general checks, those grant checks are in the list already. There isn't, I don't know if there was anything that I really raised my eyebrows when I went through the checks today, but does anyone have questions on any of them?
Or grant, but or.
Sorry?
Is that Alpine Church and Cemetery, oh, that's a cemetery, that's the Nemeth Cemetery? Bore grant.
It should be board. Alpine.
Well, like in,
The check itself reads Alpine Church and Cemetery Board.
okay,
And then it's mailed.
misprint on my,
Yeah, it must be.
it's okay, it's,
Oh, I see what it is. It's cut off the last bit. Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Okay, what's the next one we want to ask about? The walking program check is in here. We discussed that last meeting. So that's being sent through tonight. That CGIS one, I don't know if we've seen that here before. If anyone's interested in that, it's $1,800. That's for 3 months of the GIS service we have in the office. They do some asset management with that and stuff. We probably should at some point make sure we're using all of that. There's a few options there. And would likely be accurate to say we should be using all of that. We just need to make sure we are. So we're not paying for something that we're not actually using, but it's all stuff that we should be making use of. The Durban Community Hall check, that is the catering for the Christmas party we had there. I don't think we particularly discussed at council previously, so maybe it's worth mentioning here that when we approved doing the thing Durban was picked because the Benito firefighters could come that far and still be in service, so it was either Benito or Durban. And the thought was that Durban Community Hall probably could use the support, and they were willing to provide the supper. Their board did it, so the board of volunteers did all that work. So essentially, except for whatever food cost they had, that becomes income to their board to help maintain the hall. There's nylon tow rope on there, is a greater tow rope. If anyone's thinking they want one, they're only $850 to get your own greater tow rope. There was some suggestion we buy 4 of them. So far as yet, we've resisted that. We've only purchased 1. We're hoping to not need it that often. Anything else? There's a check. It looks a little weird because it's written to ourselves. It's the Municipality of Swan Valley West for $433. That's the water for the Benito rink. The council is part of our grant. The rink pays the water, but to keep the accounting straight, we pay it out as a check and then deposit it into the utility account because it's for water. Oh, there's one at the end we should talk about, the William Gade check. That is reimbursement for AMM expenses for the hotel. And if we flip through them here, we find out that it was actually more than that. But I reduced the price of it by $200 a night because it was insane what it was, and I didn't think it was fair that council pay the whole thing. So that's the reduced price. The original one was $2,600 because when you don't book AMM hotel rooms ahead of time, there are none, and then you pay whatever the rate is for a hotel room, which is kind of nuts. But I did take my kids with me, so I figured that was worth a couple $100 a night, so I took some off the bill just to make it be more palatable. Any other questions? Let's talk Thunder Hill Ski Club for a second, because it's a big check. It's $35,396.50. So all of this is money that is flowing through the municipality to Thunder Hill Ski Club. So I'm not always known for being very politically correct, so I might be slightly blunt. There's some questions about this. We are a charitable organization, so we can write a charitable receipt to anyone. The rule is they have to be donating money to our municipality, so that we then choose as a municipal council what to do with it. They can't donate it with any strings attached. They can say we want it to be for recreation, but if they come to us and say it has to be specifically for Thunder Hill Ski Club, that isn't a charitable donation. Through us, they have to just say it's for recreation, and we have to decide. What's been done in the past, historically, for many years, is we write down they said recreation, even though they said something like Thunder Hill Ski Club, and then we just send it to the ski club, which is probably, while it may be a gray area, is likely permissible. What is more troubling is that in some cases, the money that is passing through is resulting in organizations getting naming rights at the ski club. And the CRA rules say that if you receive naming rights for your donation, it is not a charitable donation. So this is, I'm not suggesting we don't run this through tonight because we've run through everything else and we have the money and what else would we do with it. This is something that on an audit is likely to come up. And worst case scenario would result in the municipality losing its charitable status and not being able to write charitable receipts to anyone for any reason. So it's just something to be aware of as we do this, that we need to find an answer. The town of Swan River did seek an opinion on this previously and will no longer do this because the opinion said not to. So I have asked their council if they could provide us a copy of the opinion so we could see where it came from and look at it and judge for ourselves what it actually says rather than what we've heard it says. So it's something we have to decide on at some point. Thunder Hill did contact us after the election. They had some concerns that we might change our interpretation of the rules. And I said we would just do what we had been doing until council had a chance to talk about it and make a decision. So that's why there's a $35,000 check there. It's not actual tax money, it's all donations flowing through. Any other questions on any of the checks? If not, I see that we need to copy. It's 11131944. Let us go into here. Just bear with me a second, I just have to update. It's up here, it's not down there. Oh. 517. 2. 18.
18517.
469. For the amount of
You got the first only change.
944. Sorry guys, I just have to update this because it wasn't quite right here yet. Okay, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. General checks number 18469 to 18517 in the amount of $111,319.44. Is there a mover? Councillor Burick. Is there a seconder? Councillor Zbirun. Any discussion on this resolution? Not, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We will move to 8.2 payroll checks. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. Payroll payments number 4417 to 4428, the amount of $18,811.54. Is there a mover? Councillor Zbirun. And a seconder, please. Councillor McGregor. You will notice that tonight we do not have in here a list of the payroll checks. We do have the full payroll checklist with the employee names and the amounts. You're welcome to see it in camera. Is there anybody that wants to wait on this until we've been in camera to see it, or are you comfortable with passing it now?
We can pass it now, I think we'd still like to maybe see it.
Yeah, so we'll take it on camera and look at.
Yeah.
I looked through it before the meeting, there's nothing particularly concerning, or I'd be saying let's wait, but I think it'll be fine. Any further discussion on that? If not, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. We will move to 8.3 indemnity checks. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. Indemnities for November number 18469 to 18477 in the amount of $11,514.27. A mover, please. Councillor McGregor, and someone to second the resolution. Councillor Burick. For discussion, if you click the little thing, it will show you the indemnities. This is the entire thing. The first sheet is a summary, then every single detail of the indemnities follows it. So you can see exactly what was submitted by the members if you want to look at it, peruse it, question it. It's there. There is a couple unrelated points of discussion I want to bring up. Does anyone want questions about anything that's on those sheets first? So what I notice is that we don't have a very clear guidance for council members on some of the details of what we should and shouldn't submit. We won't be able to solve it tonight, but put your thinking caps on. The questions revolve around when you go to a meeting, do you begin billing time when you leave your house and bill basically the driving time? Do you get time plus kilometers, or do you just get kilometers? The same question applies to things like AMM. Sometimes 20 minutes to a council meeting is not a big deal, but if you drive 5 hours to AMM, do you get paid the 5 hours plus the mileage, or do we only bill the mileage? We don't have any consistent direction on that to share with members, so we need to look into our bylaw on this. We need to, as a council, decide what we want to do and commit it into writing so that we can say to people, this is how it works, rather than what we found is some do one way, some do the other way, and then staff start trying to adjust and say, oh, well, it should be this way, it should be that way, but there isn't a basis for those decisions. So if you guys want to just think about that and think about what you think is right and fair, when everybody's here, we'll get the bylaw, go through it, and write down whatever we think it should be so that it's official, one way or the other.
No, sounds good.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. 8.4, debenture payments. Be it resolved that the annual utility debenture payment in the amount of $13,268.08 and the Burnside Bridge debenture payment in the amount of $27,742.43 be approved for payment. Is there a mover? Councillor Zbirun, and a seconder, please. Councillor McGregor. Both of these debenture payments aren't something we have a particular choice about. It's money that's been approved in the past, but we must pay the bill just like anybody else that has a mortgage or something. So we've just brought the resolution forward to get it done. Any further discussion? No, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. 8.5, reserve transfers. Be resolved that we approve the following transfers to reserve. LUD machinery replacement, $3,500. LUD paved roads reserve, $3,500. Rural paved roads reserve, $5,000. Cemetery reserve, $2,000. Emergency equipment reserve, $10,000. And be it further resolved that the machinery replacement reserve transfer not be made and the money be applied to the purchase of the 5th motor grader. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Burick, and someone to second the resolution, please. Councillor McGregor. Oh, sorry.
No, that's good.
Okay. So some discussion here, well, explanation at first, then discussion. These amounts were budgeted for in 2022 for reserve fund contributions. You'll see that there is not on the list the federal gas tax reserve. Normally it would be, so we'll get to that in a second as to why. The rest of these, the LUD ones, are specific for the LUD. It's taxed to the LUD ratepayers and only to them, and it's held separately so that only the LUD can spend that money. The rural paved roads reserve is for paved roads obviously outside of the LUD and is paid for by the rest of the municipality. Cemetery reserve and emergency equipment are both at large, so everybody in the municipality pays for those. The machinery replacement reserve transfer is not being made because that money plus what was in that reserve is what we used to buy the grader last time around. So rather than putting it in and just taking it right back out again, we're just not going to place it in there because it was used. The gas tax, typically the government pays us gas tax each year, federal gas tax. Internally, we've been splitting that up into a portion for the LUD and a portion for the rural area and keeping them separately. More very shortly here, we have another resolution dealing with gas tax. Essentially, all of that gas tax money was used this year towards the Thunder West Fire Department. So there isn't particularly gas tax money to put into the reserves because we spent it plus a bunch more. There's actually a resolution here to pull out a bunch of gas tax money from reserve to pay the rest of those bills. So that's why you're not seeing on this list. And then there's a resolution moments from now to deal with the gas tax. Discussion on this, questions?
One question.
Sure.
I don't know if we could say or not, but how much is in the reserve for cemetery? And how does that money get used?
The first question is really easy to answer.
Yeah, okay.
The second one is slightly harder.
It's around 38,000.
Cemetery Trust Fund is $38,751.30. Sorry. Ignore that. That's the trust fund and that's
Okay.
separate. The actual reserve is $8,008.38.
Okay,
The trust fund is when people pay for plots and such, that money goes into trust. The actual reserve is a separate thing that's discretionary on our part where it goes to.
is this money divided up into all the cemeteries in our RM or?
There's a general cemetery reserve,
Okay.
there's no indication of which
Okay.
one. Where I've seen it used in the past, I think in the Benito Cemetery, there was some work done to the headstones
Yeah, yeah.
to repair a bunch of them, and it
Yeah.
would have come out of the reserve.
Okay,
There's also been some concern, and a justified concern, with the exception of Benito, all the other cemeteries are run by a board still. Some of those boards have indicated they're kind of thinking calling quits.
oh,
You know, they're having trouble finding members, everybody's getting older, and the young people aren't interested. If they call it quits, they become our problem. So whereas we maybe donate $1,000 to a cemetery now, we would have to take over the maintenance of it if they stop. So I think the reserve fund, part of it is to have some cash there so that if we end up with a cemetery
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
in bad shape, we can fix it up
Yeah.
when we take it over.
okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we will call the question on the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. We already have been through 8.6, so we're moving to 8.7. Whereas the 2022 budget provided for a substantial drawdown of gas tax reserve funds to pay for the Thunder West Fire Department, and whereas the money would have otherwise been used to upgrade roads through capital projects, and whereas a small portion of the 2022 budgeted amount was used to upgrade bridges, therefore be it resolved we approve the transfer of $1,175,000 from the gas tax reserve fund to the general account for payment of fire hall, fire equipment, and bridge upgrades. Is there a mover for this? Is there a seconder as well? At least get it on the table so we can have the discussion. So I can provide some explanation. And it goes like this. The money, it's been spent, and it hasn't been taken from the reserve fund yet. So we're a little over $1.5 million spent on Thunder West so far. And on the bridges, 300 and, if anyone wants the exact number, I'll find it, $380,000 spent on bridge upgrades this year. Both qualify for federal gas tax. You've probably heard somewhere along the line someone say that no tax dollars were actually used to build Thunder West Fire Department. So the reality is that federal gas tax money is not taxed directly from our ratepayers by us. It's included in the gas tax you pay at the gas pumps every time you buy fuel, including what we buy here at Municipality, we pay gas tax on it. And then the federal government chooses to give some of it back, and that flows to the province, who then flows it to us. So each year we receive federal gas tax money. It must be used for some sort of capital upgrades. Bridges are an example, roads are often an example. In the last couple of years, fire trucks and fire
The system
calls.
has detected that a few lines are still connected to the conference and will attempt to disconnect them. If you wish to remain in the conference, please press star 1.
Okay. Where was I? It's permissible to use the money for that. So the money that's been spent so far has been drawn from our general account. The gas tax money hasn't been put back into it. So we certainly could choose not to draw down the gas tax money. The end result would be we would be over budget this year by approximately $1 million, maybe $1,175,000. So this isn't a resolution approving we spend on the fire department. This is a housekeeping resolution to get the money back that has been spent on it. Specifically to the idea it's not tax dollars, it isn't taxes we taxed directly through a mill rate, but it absolutely is tax dollars that just came from a different source. And had this not been done, we would have used this money for roads and bridges. But instead, we've built the fire department with it, so.
So what happens if we don't transfer this from the gas tax fund? We're over budgeted, like you say.
By over $1 million.
So, okay, what happens to that then?
We'd probably get spanked by the province and be forced to tax an additional $1 million next year on the mill rate.
So you're,
We cannot do this. There is an option, there's always an option, it's not a great option, because if we were, say for example, we were $1 million over budget this year because we didn't use the reserve funds for it, we would be required to recoup that in some way, and typically you would recoup that by an extra line on the taxes that said last year was over budget by $1 million. The mill rate would be enough that, like our overall budget taxation is about $3 million, so it'd be about a third more on everybody's tax bill with a line saying because you were so far over budget last year. It would show up like that, and we'd just charge everybody for it come tax time next year. Probably be, you'd want to be away for a few weeks when the tax bill came out if we did that. Just saying. It's doable, and I can understand why some may want to, but.
So what will happen with our bridges then? And then are we gonna be short?
we're short $1 million, 1 point.
Yeah, we're short almost $1.2 million.
1.2 million.
Our gas tax reserve right now is $1,290,000 in it. So this will leave about $100,000 left in reserve. there was an additional, like the budget also called for removing 400 and some $1,000 from our general reserve fund to pay the rest of the fire hall bill. Unfortunately, there isn't that much money in our general reserve fund. We may still have to draw that down as we see how the year ends. But so far as yet, there's 348,000 left in the general reserve. It depends what bills show up and what we have in payroll the last few weeks, how much of that we may need. We'll probably, there's a good chance we're gonna have to draw that down as well, to get through the year break even, because so much was spent.
No talk on, I mean, we got a fire truck, we got that other truck sitting there. Maybe we should have a sale.
Well, I'm glad you said that instead of me.
Well, I mean, if they're just sitting there not moving, right?
So-
I mean,
Can we,
either we're gonna use it or we're not gonna use it.
Do we want to do that right now? Like I could put it on the agenda, we could talk about it a little later?
yeah,
Yes.
can we
Okay.
table it for the next meeting? Or
Yeah, I
not?
think it
Well,
would
there's a
be-
couple details I'll share
that's
even,
pretty-
just so you know what's happening.
Cause I think it'd be nice if the rest of the members knew where the money is coming from. Some of them might not.
So you wanted to table the transfer?
What do you say?
Is that permissible?
Can you do that, or does it have?
I thought we needed to transfer
Before
before
the
the
end
end of the year,
Be
eh?
really, really good too.
Yeah,
Really, really, really good.
yeah, it just, it
And
just
we're gonna
complicates things.
table
my question then.
I'm gonna answer half your question.
Okay.
Yeah, I really think that the transfer needs to happen.
Has to happen,
before the end
okay.
of the year.
Well, if it has to happen, it has to happen, but I just wonder if the other members know where that money came from.
If it would please you, I would certainly, we could bring in an agenda item at the January 10th meeting and review this resolution for why it was done.
Yeah.
If that like, I get where you wanna go.
Yep.
I think we still have to do the transfer, but we could
Yeah.
certainly put this on the agenda and we could rehash this then
Yep.
as to why we did this. I think we have, there's 3 people away, I think it would be beneficial to explain to them why we took that much money out of reserves.
Right, exactly.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor?
You were reelected.
You're preaching to the choir.
It's an election year.
Yeah.
Right.
Fire breathing.
People wanted all that money spent on roads.
Yeah.
I've done something very silly here, so just give me a second while I fix what I did to my
Roads,
computer.
bridges.
I'll get back in here. Okay, there we go. We are going to make sure that's saved. It did, so we're going to move to discussion. And just before we get there, I'm going to quickly add your fire truck questions in here as discussion. Everybody's fine with adding that to the agenda?
Yep.
Fire discussion. So that will appear here shortly. Okay, I see what happened. My mouse got carried away and I've moved something on the agenda, but we'll fix it later. Rural water agreement draft. So the discussion items, there's only one PDF file that has all of that material in it. So it's kind of a little confusing. So if you click discussion 1, it'll show you everything. You just have to scroll through it. We were still kind of getting used to the system. So this is not for voting tonight. In fact, it was voted on previously by previous council. We've talked about this rural water agreement just in passing a couple times. This is the actual text of the agreement, so you can see what it has. This is to provide for the opportunity to have rural water in our municipality. So it does 2 things. If we had the water pipeline being built, this would be the source of water for the pipeline. Even without the pipeline, as we know, that didn't turn out so well. This would allow us to have water to users in our municipality on a one-off basis. For example, we could connect the Thunder West Fire Hall to water. We could also connect Spruce Products to water, and that's probably the one of interest here. Spruce Products would desperately like a line with fire hydrants on it because they see concerns for their operation not being able to get water quickly enough. That was an issue at the fire they had there recently, so they want to have fire hydrants. I've spoken to the town on this agreement. We talked a little bit when we were at shared services about it. My concern with it is that it was kind of rushed through council at the last minute before the election. There wasn't any negotiating done on it, and there's a $2.75 million payment to the town of Swan River contained in the agreement. The payment's over time. We don't write the check all at once, but it's a payment to pay them back for money they've spent on their water system in the past, which is questionable because their water system is bought and paid for already, and we would be a user purchasing water. The agreement provides that we pay the same rates any other user pays. So if you had a house in Swan River getting water, we would pay them that same rate for the water. So that amount includes all expenses for the water system, including paying all of their capital costs. So they essentially get the full price from us for water, plus they get $2.7 million extra over time. The agreement was passed by the previous council here. My understanding is that the town had sent it over assuming it would be a negotiating starting point and put some rather large numbers in there for the capital contribution, and were surprised when Swan Valley West approved it without asking for the number to come down or for a better rate on the water. But there was, conjecture is, there was some pressure to have the agreement passed before the election, so none of that happened. It simply got passed as presented. We have not signed it. The resolution that was passed did not approve the Reeve or CAO signing it. It simply said it approved the draft agreement. It would be good to have more discussion on this, and I would suggest we should be asking the town of Swan River to reconsider the pricing in it, because it's unfortunate pricing. If we're going, maybe we should contribute to capital, but if we are, then why would we be paying the same price as people that don't contribute to capital? It doesn't make sense when we do both. We should either get a deal on the water, or we shouldn't be paying a whole bunch up front. Anyway, I did hear from Spruce Products in the last day or so. They are eager to have water service. They would like that done as soon as it can be done, politically and physically with the ground. So it's something we shouldn't wait on too long. We should discuss some more. We'll probably send it forth to the 10th meeting for more discussion, but the agreement's in there so you can see it. The Bonito Lagoon license, the draft is there as well for it. This again is just for review. Actually, it isn't there, unless anybody else sees it. I only see the water agreement here. We will get you that draft agreement, because it's not in the system. Sorry, it's our first night. It's here in paper, so we'll get it scanned in and get it electronically to everybody so you can review it. And it will come up for discussion again as well. 9.4, the community well. You may or may not know there were troubles with the community well not that long ago, and those troubles continue. The troubles manifest as no water. The community well, if you aren't familiar with it, is near Bonito, by the hydro station there. It's key operated, it's not treated water, so it's used for livestock primarily, but there's other uses too. People pay us a fee per year for a key and use as much water as they want. They go in, turn the key, the water comes out, except lately when you turn the key, the water doesn't come out. We have diagnosed the problem to be mice. Thankfully not plugging at the pipe, just chewing on the wires. So we have had riddles out there. They have looked at it, figured out what the problem is, and I've ordered the parts, but the parts are not yet in. We have photos here if anyone wants to see what mice look like of the chewing and the mouse droppings and nest and several other details that were found in there. Unfortunately, there's no mouse bodies. Sometimes they electrocute themselves. These ones seem to have lived for another day. Any questions or further discussion about the community well? We'll get it fixed.
So it's supposed to be what, beginning right after the New Year's running?
Very soon. 9.5, GPS equipment for graders. This isn't here for decision tonight, it's just discussion. I have received budgetary pricing for GPS equipment for the graders. If we commit to a 3-year contract on it, the equipment is free up front. Less than $60 a month a grader, depends how many machines we have. So probably $45 to $50 a month per machine. That can seem expensive depending on which GPS you've looked at before. There are GPS systems that are as low as $5 or $10 a month. The difference is they don't do all the same stuff. So the cheaper ones only work when you're in cell phone range. These more expensive ones still use cell phones, but they store the information when you're out of range. So for example, when a machine is in Alpine, it would store its route and where it went, and as soon as it does find a place where the cell phone works, it uploads it all. It also provides a lot of mapping, so that we can ask it to see where has the grader been in the last 12 hours, where has it been in the last 3 days. The idea is safety for the live view, to see if a grader's been sitting someplace too long. We should go check on why it's not moving. But then the rest of it for some upgrading to our scheduling and planning. Unfortunately, we've had several examples in the last few weeks where we're having difficulty knowing where the graders have been, and graders are returning to the same location, even though there's now nothing there to grade. So this would help with that. They would be able to see as well where the other graders had been, to know, oh gee, I know that road had to be done, oh so-and-so's been there already, I don't need to worry about it, type of thing. It would also be quite helpful in the office. I'm a big information guy, and right now when people are calling in about roads, we're essentially telling them we're working on it, we're doing the best we can. I would really like us to be able to tell people more, because I think the more we can share with people, the more understanding they are of where we're at. Today we were able to share with some people, we're working in this particular area in shift 1, and in shift 2 we're going to be working in your area. So yes, we're coming to the area, but we won't be there until at least 2 o'clock. And sometime between 2 and the end of shift, we'll probably be there. And I just like sharing that. What we don't want to do with GPS equipment is start moving people around and say, oh, you go over here. We're not here for that. This isn't Big Brother. It's more about better quality of service and making sure we're not wasting miles on graders if we don't have to. It will come back with an actual quote, I believe, for next time, for us to consider if we want to do it. There have been concerns in the past from some of the operators feeling it would be used as Big Brother, and they would receive phone calls all day saying, you're not going fast enough, you turned the wrong corner, you shouldn't have done that. So they would certainly want us to be assuring them that that wasn't the point of it, that this was something that was actually going to help them. And somewhat in the same vein as we talked earlier about the Bonito water treatment plant, we many times have residents that say a grader hasn't been here for 2 months. And this would allow us to say, yes, we have, and here's when, which would be very good for supporting our staff. So, those complaints that, oh, they just ignore me. No, they don't. Here's the days they were there. We've been there. This particular system also provides optionally a blade up, blade down indicator. If we want to install it, it will report in the system if we were grading at the time we went by, or if we weren't. So you'll be able to tell if we're high blading back and forth someplace, or if we actually graded the road. So the people that also say sometimes the grader went by 6 times, but it never actually graded, the system would say, well, actually 4 of those times we were grading when we went by. So something to think about if we're wanting to do it. It would be around that $3,000 a year mark. 9.6, fire discussion. This is the new item. So the question was, we have a bunch of equipment sitting there, should we have a sale? Oh yes, we should. But here's what's actually happening. Swan River Fire Department, Chief Fedorchuk and Chief Oschuk from Bonito are this week, and they may have been there already, but they may have been delayed with the snow, going to the Thunder West Fire Hall to perform an inventory. So they're going to look through what equipment is there, the trucks, the features of the trucks, the specs of them, figure out what can be done. They're going to look at all the other tools and stuff. The thought process is a starting point of where are we at? What do we have and what do we not have? So everybody's clear on it. Swan River has approved a borrowing bylaw to borrow approximately $1 million to buy a new fire truck. The fire truck we have was not $1 million and will probably work for them. So I have been moving on the council privately to consider not buying that $1 million fire truck and instead consider our fire truck as what they need. No promises one way or the other, but it's being talked about. I've spoken privately with the Minitoba's council. They also are in need of a fire truck. Our fire truck would also work for them. So that would be an option as well. And we haven't made a decision as council, we're not going to again operate Thunder West. That's a decision we need to make before we do something with fire trucks. But if we were to go down the path of disposing of assets, there's two good possibilities where that fire truck could go locally that would both be very good for the valley. And specifically, there's some discussion with Swan River. Councillor Zbirun was there that night for the discussion of looking at a fire service that isn't owned by the town of Swan River anymore. So something like we do with Airport Commission, where Airport Commission's its own separate thing and we all put some people on the board, but it isn't the towns and it isn't the municipalities. It's the Airport Commission and it's separate and it deals with the airport having a fire commission that deals with fire and does what's best for fire without political interference of, well, we're going to take our fire department away from you if you don't do this. So that step towards making so fire is never again a negotiating tactic for either side for any reason, having an actual fire commission. So should our truck work for what they need and save the $1 million, that might be part of a deal reached to have us own 50% of the fire department and them own 50% as this fire commission, so that it's no longer the town's fire department, but also not our fire department. It is actually jointly owned and can never be ripped away from each other. It used to be that way many years ago. We used to own 50% of that fire department and it was never used as a negotiating tactic. We chose to sell our share. And that would be, I think at Councillor Burick's time, but probably 25, 30 years ago. It would have been when you were first on council that change happened.
Before that, maybe.
Before that?
Before that.
Okay.
Could have been when Ellingson was here as Reeve, maybe.
Try Galloway.
Or Galway?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we probably shouldn't sell it today, but there's needs to be some discussion about Dukes. It can't just be left to sit there.
Yeah. Did you say the town and Minnetonka want the same truck, or they're different? I thought one wanted one truck and the other one could use another truck.
So specifically to our pumper, either one could use the pumper.
Okay.
The Grasslands truck, I would strongly suggest that the valley needs that Grasslands truck.
Okay.
What I have talked to anyone that will listen about is basing that Grasslands truck in Swan River, so it's central, but having it respond to any grass fire in the valley, be it Swan Valley West, Swan River, and really Minnetonka's Bozeman needs it just as much as we do. So the question to the fire folks, because fire folks know what they're doing more than we will ever know what we're doing with fire, right?
Yeah.
We can give them the money, we can give them the equipment, but they need to sort it out. I said, can you make it so that if there's a grass fire in Benito or there's a grass fire in Minnetonka's, one firefighter from Swan River gets in the grass truck and drives it to wherever the fire is. So the normal fire department goes, but coming at the same time is the fast little grass truck that can get there quicker and do more. And they said, yes, they can. And I said, that's what I want to hear. Because it would be a waste to just put it in Benito. It would be a waste to only have it in Swan River. Because half the time Benito needs that truck. When they're at a grass fire, that is the best truck for the grass fire. And Benito has said they would be willing to have a firefighter from Benito drive to Swan River in their private vehicle, pick up the truck and take it. But that's an extra 20 minutes or half an hour, depending on how fast they go. So if Swan River would be willing to bring it, and they don't have to bring a whole department, but just get one guy just to drive that truck, even if he gets out of the truck at that point and they drive it, just to get it to those fires, right, would be the best use for that truck. The pumper, if we can come up with a deal with Swan, it would probably be what we paid for it. If it goes to Minnetonka's, I don't know if they pay us full price or not. But my personal thought is if we're going to lose a little bit of money selling a fire truck, I'd rather lose it to a neighbor than taking it to an auction sale and taking our chances. You know, and maybe I said to Minnetonka's, like, what would you be willing to do if you wanted that fire truck? Well, they don't have $300,000. I said, well, what if we gave you financing? What if you paid us some amount per year for the next however many years? You know, we've spent the money. But if it's coming back, at least it's coming back. And again, if we're helping a neighbor municipality, we're supposed to all be in this together, right? So the small tools and such, Benito Fire has indicated that they've been underfunded for some time, and some of those tools are far better than what they have. So some of that stuff we may, you know, if we go down that path, some of it may be a good idea to put into Benito, which is why they're involved with the inventory to see what there is. Swan River's tools are probably fine. You know, they're probably the same stuff. But Benito certainly has some stuff that's older and could maybe be replaced. Something specifically like the Jaws of Life, however, Bonito has a brand new set, Swan River has a brand new set. Manitoba, I don't think is that old either. It's probably spare. And from what I understand, there is a fire resale market between fire departments, and there's a website where they can list it. So we could take something, be it the Jaws Life or anything, that we could purpose someplace and sell it. They say you get about 80% of the value back. So we take a little loss, but we would be able to sell some of it if we wanted to. So I don't know if that answers all your questions, but that's what I know so far.
Well, I was just wondering because, I mean, it's sitting there and either we're gonna use it or we're not gonna use it, so.
And they are, part of their purpose of being there this week is to locate the keys for the trucks and the building codes to get in and how to open the garage doors, so that should there be a substantive event where Swan River needs another pumper, they can get that pumper. So it's not sitting there. And the example that keeps getting thrown around is if Spruce Products is on fire, we would all look pretty stupid if we had a pumper full of water sitting in a garage while it burned. So they're going to make sure that both Bonito and Swan River know how to get it out of there if it's needed someplace. So we're not saying, oh, I wish we could get it. So. Any more discussion on fire? Not, we'll move to item number 10, correspondence. This one is also all sort of bundled together there, so there's a few different things. We'll run through them, but if you're looking for the actual stuff, it's all in that one correspondence, one file. 10.1, 2023 Trade Show in Winnipeg, February 27th and 28th, 2023. Who is the MWWA?
Manitoba Water and Wastewater? We're looking at that.
The Manitoba Water and Wastewater Board of Directors is having a trade show, I think.
Where are you seeing that?
I've seen this. Mine starts halfway through. There must be one page earlier that's not in mine. What is the feeling of administration? Is this something we should be sending people to? I don't assume we want to exhibit at the trade show, but this must be part of some sort of conference?
Yeah, the Bonito councillors would, like one or two would go. And they always felt it was very worthwhile and they would come back.
Is this in
with all
Brandon?
kinds of. This one I think is in Winnipeg this year.
Oh, yeah, it says
They
Winnipeg,
started alternating between Brandon and Winnipeg.
Okay, yeah, it says
Yeah.
Winnipeg.
So our former council members always felt that it was worthwhile sending somebody to, get the information and bring it back for the
Yeah.
rest of council. Seemed to be worthwhile.
What is the will of council? Do we wish to send someone to this, and does anyone wish to be the one to go?
I mean, as the RM and Swan Valley West, we used to send them to that trade show too.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite usually it wasn't Brandon all the time, but no,
Yeah.
you say they switched now. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a good show in Brandon, like the big Keystone Center was just packed.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, like, I mean, if somebody wants to go, a couple councilors, half council, whatever.
We
it's
can
fine.
send it to the 10th if there's no one here wanting to volunteer, and see if someone there.
Leave it on the 10th meeting.
Or you can pay my exorbitant costs of going.
Well, you are a good representation, you do
Well,
well.
thank you for
You
that.
do well, you do well.
Manitoba Métis Federation is the next page in the package. It's addressed to Reeve Gade and all the councillors congratulating us on the recent election. There isn't really an ask here, it's simply a letter telling us a little bit about them and congratulating us again. It's from President David Chartrand. He's looking forward to working together with us for prosperous Manitoba and beyond. 10.3. This one is not so easy. Economic Development Strategies. This is a letter from Derek Poole to the CAOs. It's brought forward for council's information. Let us start with how we got to here, for anyone that doesn't know. We had Swan Valley Rise. Swan Valley Rise was, by the end, an unmitigated disaster. The Board of Rise could not stop fighting with each other long enough to accomplish anything. That led to the Economic Development Officer resigning, that led to the Assistant Economic Development Officer resigning. Swan Valley Rise has no staff anymore because they all quit. They didn't want to be there anymore. They said things like, this is the least functional board we've ever seen. It was represented or made up of 2 people from each municipality. For a time I was on the RISE board, and then when I was removed I was replaced by Reeve Galloway. RISE was in the process of tearing itself apart and was going to refund the money in reserves to the member municipalities and end all economic development for the valley. So at G4 in spring of this year, a proposal came forward for how to split up the money, and I was there and I took strong exception to it. And I delivered about a 15-minute speech to all of the councillors from all the other municipalities about what I thought of them and thought about their inability to do economic development and destroy our valley together as a group. And there was silence for a while. And then when the silence finally ended, they said, well, what should we do? So the proposal that was reached was that we would kick off every single member of the RISE board that was on there. Because I don't think anyone was necessarily not guilty of the problems that existed at RISE. And we would appoint representatives from each area of the valley that were not politicians, had never been elected. Business people, community members, whatever you wanted, we'd get them on the board. We would ask them to meet together and come up with a plan for economic development. And come back to us immediately following the October election, to all councils, and tell us how we should do economic development and how much we should spend on it. We had been spending between $60,000 and $70,000 a year here. The town was spending a similar amount on it as well to fund RISE. So there was not necessarily a lack of money, there was a lack of doing. A lot of the reason that was suggested, it was Councillor Delorier and I that came up with the idea, was to simply slow down the process of ending RISE. There wasn't support in the room for anything other than kick it down the road. So the thought was kick it down the road till after the election and see what the councils looked like then, if they could get along with each other and if we could do economic development. This board was supposed to have met several times by the time the election came along and been ready to present to us at our first meeting. Unfortunately, the politicians couldn't agree on how to appoint people. So for several months, the 4 councils squabbled on the appointment process to appoint to the board, and did eventually finally appoint some people to the board. Although some councils didn't appoint any because they couldn't agree on anybody, so then other councils appointed extra. But eventually, there was a board appointed that then did not meet before the election, and only actually met for the first time days ago. And of the 8 members that were supposed to be there, 3 showed up. So only 3 members actually showed up from that board. Now, the document you're looking at suggests that because the meeting was close to Christmas, perhaps that's an excuse why. But the reality is that meeting was 6 months late from when it was supposed to be held. So it would be fair to say we continue to have substantive issues with economic development. Economic development is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I believe we have to start growing this valley, or we need to be prepared to back it up. We've got to get on board here as the whole valley and start doing something. This will come up at the February 6th G4, G8 meeting, depending on what you call it. They're to present a plan on February 6th for economic development, and they've had 1 meeting and 3 of them showed up. So I don't know how they can possibly be in a position to present a plan a month from now, but we can hope for miracles, I suppose. We need to do something at that G4 meeting. As a council, we need to figure out what we're going to propose, because frankly, we were the problem at RISE. We continually did everything we could to frustrate RISE. We threatened to pull out of RISE. We demanded our money back. We wouldn't vote on things. It was a disaster. And so everything you'll find at the G4 meeting, the other councils have a substantial amount of blame for us in what went on with RISE. We need to do better and set a better example and come up with a plan. Part of this was we decided that no politician would have anything to do with RISE for the time being, which is driving me nuts because I would love to be at RISE. Economic development is my passion. That's what I want to do. But I'm not allowed to go because I'm a politician. And because it went so bad with politicians before, especially politicians from Swan Valley West, we're essentially not to be there for now. So as a valley, we need to come up with a plan and My fear is if this continues as it goes, it's going to be next Christmas before we're getting a report, and we're going to lose another full year of economic development where we should be doing something to try and get going here. We're just going to write off a whole other year. We've written off the last 4 years essentially on this. So the email's there. They met on the 7th, I guess. They note that some elected officials seemed very angry to not have been told the meeting, so they couldn't go to it. They weren't told, so they didn't show up because it wasn't for elected officials. So if you heard there was a meeting you missed, you didn't miss it. No elected officials were allowed to be there. And we will dump this into discussion coming up in January. The terms of reference are here. You might recognize the language as being something I would write. This is the document I wrote. There was a steering committee formed. It was Councillor Deloria, myself, Councillor Nadolny, and I draw a blank on who the councillor was from Minnetonka, but there was a steering committee formed that came up with these terms of reference. So what that board is supposed to be doing is written here. That just hasn't happened yet. Any questions on all that? Now we'll go to 10.4, MMSM recycling funding. This is a letter from Multi-Material Stewardship Manitoba. They're telling us what our funding is. In 2023, we will receive $12,607.90 paid in 4 payments, April, July, October, and January. That represents 33 tons of recycled material at a rate of $405.73 a ton. And then there's the in-kind newspaper thing, which is different. We don't get that in cash. The $12,607 we get in cash. So that will show as income in our 2023 budget. We get paid essentially a year after. So we recycle 33 tons this year, we get that money next year. If we recycle more, that amount will go up. If we recycle less, it will go down. They also ask in here that if we're going to make any changes to our recycling program, we consult with them because they would provide advice to us on if it's a good idea or not. We did make some changes obviously to our recycling program partway through the year, and those changes were to stop the collection in Bonito of the individual bins. So Bonito right now is served through 2 front load bins, the big dumpster like things that people put their recycling in, but we aren't currently picking up at each house in Bonito. The LUD, I believe, will be presenting their concerns on that in due course, suggesting that 2 bins is not enough. The safety committee has already presented their concerns on that, saying the bins must not be at their current location because they're in our workshop yard, and it is not a location that's considered safe for the general public to be going to all the time, especially when we're operating equipment in the yard during the day. So that's all on your future radar. Any questions about that actual letter or the money? Then let us go to unfinished business. This is 11.1. Last meeting, we held a public hearing regarding a conditional use order for Northeast Quarter Section 2236-27 West. That was to establish harvesting of natural resources, essentially read sawmill, right? This is the sawmill site out on the boulevard. We had one person attend the meeting. They had concerns about the operation, specifically with the smoke from it. We agreed as a council to table this resolution and then to arrange for the proponent that had applied to be at a meeting and the person with concerns to be at the same meeting so we could answer those concerns. Further research on the part of the parties has determined that the smoke issue is a matter for an Environmental Act license. So approving this does not give permission to burn the material there in a burner. There's a separate license required for that. That is not something we deal with. It's the environmental folks that deal with that. So the folks that were concerned and had concerns have indicated they wish to withdraw their concerns to the application and no longer oppose it, which means we now have an unopposed application by the applicant. So the intention tonight, if council is so willing, is to pass this conditional use resolution, and we will sign the order for them, and then the concerns about the smoke will be taken up at the environmental licensing process. Does that make sense to everybody? I will then read this resolution. Whereas the council for the Municipality of Swan Valley West has received an application for a conditional use order on the property known as part of Northeast Quarter Section 2236-27 West, specifically to allow for the establishments related to harvesting of natural resources such as forestry within the AG zone as allowed under Table 4.1 AG Agricultural General Zone Use and Bulk Table of the Arm of Swan River Zoning Bylaw number 2383-04, and whereas notice of public hearing was posted and delivered to adjacent landowners in accordance with Part 6 of the Planning Act, and the municipality has not received any objections with respect to said application, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West does hereby approve the aforementioned conditional use as per the application dated November 1st, 2022, and shall issue conditional use order number 2021-03, and be it further resolved that the Reeve or Deputy Reeve shall be authorized to sign said order on behalf of the municipality. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Byron, is there a seconder? Councillor Zbirun, and is there anyone that's going to be miserable and say, oh, I missed one word, could you reread all that? No?
No.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. I had looked forward to reading it again. 11.2. This is Urban Public Works. And do you want to speak to this, or?
Well, it was just sort of an informational thing that Daniel is currently, he's a seasonal mower operator, but he's working alongside Bill and Benito, and they seem to be accomplishing things together, and it seems to be working well. But I also contacted someone who had previously worked in the village of Benito and asked them if they would be interested, because obviously you're looking for someone who is also able to get the water and wastewater tickets is a big thing. And so this other person who had previously worked for Benito said that, yeah, he'd be quite happy to come back if, and I mean, I told him he'd have to go through the application process. I wasn't offering him a job or anything, but I was just wanting to see if there was interest there, available and interested. And so he indicated that he was. And so presumably, and I mean this is up to council, but I'm presuming that Daniel will at some point be going back to mowing when there's grass to mow. So just something to be proactive about looking at getting somebody there.
I can add that for the next couple days, we're still well and truly LED and municipal rural area. The LED committee has indicated that their future service plan will not provide for employees specific to the LED. That Public Works, they will leave that to at large, as it probably should have been all this time, so we don't have employees that can't move across lines. We've encouraged the employees already to be moving across lines when needed, because it doesn't make sense to have someone sit in Benito not working if they could just go to town and do something. So to that end, last night, Mr. Whiteque was assisting with the grader issues, so he was out doing work on that outside of Benito, which was good. I would like to see us train at least 2 more people for the water course. We have been caught so many times in the last several years of only having 1 person trained and having to have them work 7 days a week and pay them an exorbitant amount of overtime for that. We have had a couple existing employees indicate they'd be willing to take the course as well. I can share their names in camera. It would be very good for us to get our mind around approving training some more people. Existing staff, or if we're hiring someone or whatever, we need to get some training done, and we need to get it done soon. When we do the training, they still need up to a year. Technically, they need a year of experience in the plant. It doesn't have to be every day, but they have to be going in and learning the plant. If they have at least a few months of that, and we were to have a situation where we had no operator available, we'd be able to get some emergency authorization for them to operate the plant. But as we said right now, if a situation comes up, say for example, Mr. Whiteque was to fall off a grader or fall off the tractor or be injured, we have no one else to operate that plant, and we would be out of compliance immediately. which is not a place we can afford to be. We must do something. Do we want to, I guess the question is, do we want to think of approving training some more people? And do we want to attach names to that at some point, which we probably do on the 10th? Or the furthest we could go now would be saying that we approve administration having 2 people trained, but I don't know if we would want to do that. I think we might want more supervisory over who gets trained. Would we want to leave it to the 10th and bring names forward? That'd be workable for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. And we should answer at that time, probably in a camera discussion, what the future holds for Daniel, because I think he will want to go back mowing. I don't think he would not want to mow. What we will do, because we've never actually hired him as a public works person, we're just using him as a casual person right now. 11.3 grader operator. We have received, we've almost received another application for a casual operator. Let's check and see if I happen to have someone get back to me here.
Is that Don? I think,
Oh,
somebody's
really?
knocking on the door.
So one of our casual operators that we have already approved has indicated they will consider whether or not they want to apply for full-time. It would be a returning operator that has the experience. So we don't know the answer to that. They may apply. In theory, by the time we meet on the 10th, we should have 4 working graders. And we may even have 5 working graders by the 10th. That's our hope, is to have 5 of them working. So we only have 3 grader operators right now. We need to get hiring a 4th one. We had an additional person that spoke to me and said they would be sending in an application to be a spare operator. We're still short spares, we should have more. Ideally, I'd like to have 5 or 6 on the list, so we always have someone to call if we need someone. I did speak to our consultant about that particular operator. He thought that it was a good idea. However, the resume did not make it to the office in time to be included tonight. So I don't have a resume to share with you. Is it in the will of council we wait till the 10th so we have the resume in our hands? Or do we want to add that person to the list even though they never got their resume here?
The system has detected that a few lines are connected to the conference and will attempt to disconnect them. If you wish to remain in the conference, please press *1. 15. To dial out, please dial the area code and number that you wish to connect to the conference, followed by the pound sign. Press * to return to the conference.
Are you still there, Meredith? She'll call in. She always does.
So can we use this operator now without looking at the resume, or we can use them, look at the resume later, or what? What are you saying?
I'm just asking a question.
Does-
You're the council.
No, we
I'm
need-
merely the Reeve.
Yeah, we need men.
It would be nice. If it was totally my decision in the private world, I would put him on the list. But he hasn't brought his resume in yet.
You said you had your
I
focus,
spoke to him. He has greater knowledge.
and you spoke to our,
Talked to our consultant. He
Yeah.
thought it was a perfectly fine idea, but the resume did not get here.
that's fine with me, I
Before the
think.
meeting.
But,
We can go in camera. I'll share the name with you
Yeah.
there. And then if we want to, we'll come back out after. and
Okay.
approve it.
yeah, that's good.
I see Mr. Bobick is here, but he is early, so he will have to suffer for a few minutes. We're almost there, though. Section number 12, committee reports. So, let us start with Councillor McGregor.
Nothing to report.
Oh, Councillor Zbirun.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Burick.
You know, I missed the planning district meeting. You called me about half an hour before it started.
I should have called you sooner.
Took me a day before, but I mean, I had so many issues with roads and blocking in roads and everything. And the last correspondence I had from planning district was December 19th. And I never had it marked down, I just completely forgot about it. But since you were there, and I understand you are the chair,
I am the chair.
very good, it's very good. So, no, you can report on it, but no, that's the only one that I missed that one, and it was my mistake.
Forgive me, I'm just gonna look at my list. Make sure I don't leave something out. I have this handy little thing on here. If you look at the indemnities, it just lists every place I was. It works so good, because I don't have to remember them all. So I was at Planning District, and a couple things to note out of that meeting. I'm the chair.
You're working your way up.
It seems to be a matter if everybody else said no quicker. Well, they said, who wants to be chair? They're all, no. It's like, do we say no now? Like, oh, you're the last one, you're the chair. It was a good meeting though. We discussed the actual plan. So there's a planning act for our entire planning area, which is the G4, essentially the 4 municipalities. It was made 19 years ago, 21 years ago. It's approximately a 20-year-old document. Before amalgamation, lots of things have changed. In fact, it doesn't even exist in electronic form because computers hadn't been invented yet then. So there's only a limited number of printed out paper copies, and once those are gone, they're gone. So no one can actually get a copy of it now because there's only one copy left at each office. So you can come in and look at it, but you can't take it home with you in case you never bring it back. It's substantially out of date. In Swan Valley West and in Swan River, we both have zoning bylaws that take care of much of how planning works. But in Mountain and in Minnetonka's Bozeman, they don't as much. So they draw more directly from the Planning Act. So because it's so out of date, the example given is the rec center in Birch River is now a fish plant, illegally. Because the Planning Act doesn't allow it to be a fish plant, and there's no way to change that without changing the actual act that we all abide by. So they're illegally operating a fish plant in Birch River, and we all just don't say anything because we know the thing's so old and needs to be updated. So they have accepted quotes on updating the act. It's called an act, but it's really the plan. They're expensive. There will be a discussion coming to the G4 meeting about how to split up that cost to do this. It's being suggested by 3 of the municipalities that it be split equally between the 4 municipalities. It's being suggested by the 4th municipality that it be split by assessment, which is the typical thing that we can usually drag out for 6 to 12 months before we just make up our mind and get it done. So we will discuss at G4. I have asked that outstanding municipality that doesn't agree to what the other 3 did to bring it up at a meeting and hash it out for some time to see if they could not just come to some sort of agreement before G4 and get it over with so we don't waste a year on it. I haven't heard back yet, but we'll see what we can do with that. If we do it split equally, we're probably into it for $9,000 to $10,000. If we split it by assessment, we're into it for closer to $20,000, which is why the other municipality would really like it by assessment, because Swan River and us would pay a lot more and they would pay a lot less than us. If you're new to council, this happens every single time on every single topic. The 4 of us can't agree how to split things up. So this is a really good test for all of our 4 councils that said we're all going to work together better to actually prove we will. If we could actually resolve this at G4 and come up with a plan and be done with it, it will be a sign that our valley is in a really good spot. So we'll do that. That other thing that probably should be mentioned, for better or for worse, when the meeting wrapped up, there was a long discussion amongst the group that it was the best planning meeting they'd had in several years, 6 really, and that they had never actually had a meeting where a fight hadn't broken out between Swan Valley West and other people about how to pay for something. So they were very appreciative that we have changed our view on the world and are no longer nickel and diming the planning district to death, and they wanted to extend their thanks. I also attended the Settlement Services 25th anniversary. Council had sent me there by resolution. I am struggling with what to do with part of that question, so I'll look to the group for advice. The resolution provided that I would be paid mileage and time for going there. It was a party. It was a supper and a social evening, and I just can't imagine that I should really be billing for that. Because like, I got free food, And I got to visit with a bunch of people, and certainly I was representing the municipality. I was there as Reeve. I stood up when they talked about our municipality contributing. I'm on the board. Unless you guys really feel I should bill for it, I don't think I'm gonna bill the time. I'll just bill the mileage to get there. Because I just can't see billing 3 or 4 hours for sitting there eating supper. So if that's fine by everybody, I'm just gonna adjust my indemnities to not bill the time for it, because it doesn't make sense to me. It was a very good evening. We dined very well. I sat with His Worship Mayor Jacobson and the MLA. So most of the evening was spent discussing municipal issues that we wanted the provincial government to work on. So one of those networking opportunities again. There was a couple other councillors from Swan over there as well, so we discussed some of our inter-council business. And then later on in the evening, I got a chance to visit with a bunch of people. Some of them ratepayers from our area, but various things. The Mennonite youth group, which is primarily from Swan Valley West, was serving that night. So they came out to help with it because they too are immigrants. And it was pointed out very clearly that really all of us are immigrants at some point. Some of us are immigrants 100 years ago, and some of us are immigrants a few days ago, and some of us are immigrants thousands of years ago. But we all came here from someplace. So it was a very good evening. Lots of different cultures shared. And again, just amazing to see the work Settlement Services has been doing. So it's good. High District Settlement Services. That concludes my report. There's a little bit about Mr. Bobick, but we'll get to that later. Questions about anything anyone's had tonight? Now, normally we would bring a resolution accepting verbal reports and we would type them all out and say that you said this and you said that. Is there any point to that? I don't see it. Like, it's something we've been doing, but do we have to have a resolution for committee reports, or can we just dispense with it? Okay. So we are not going to bring that resolution forward. Next up is the in-camera session. Is there anything else that we should be discussing in the open forum while we have the advantage of videotape here so our residents can see what we're up to? Consultant Bobick, in his current role, the first part of your presentation can be in the open, from what I understood. So if it would be agreeable to the group, can we do that now?
Yeah.
And when he's going to hit a couple topics that probably need to go in camera. So when we get to that, we'll take our break. We'll say goodnight to Jeremy, and then we'll come back for the in-camera if everybody's okay with that. Yeah. Come on up, pick a chair, and let's talk public works.
You gotta get one of these things, Don. They're really good.
Like that from Brian.
Evening, Reeve Council, Gail. Somewhere. Ducks in a row here. Okay, some of the subjects you'll see on here are just for kind of a reference point, so they'll just, it'll be until we can pass them around, I guess. You want to, Brian.
You have enough for everybody?
Yeah. I got one that's ready. Good. Okay, I'll start off with list of job descriptions. I think a few of your staff need a more stronger position on what their jobs are, but it's something they can go through with time. It doesn't need to happen overnight, but just something to get them what they're supposed to be doing and where they are. So we can look at that later. I've got change the locks in all the shops. That doesn't mean that it's to change the locks to be from past employees. I think part of it is to protect past of your employees. You've gone such a large turnover that maybe you should change the locks on the shops and some of the things, just because then everybody's covered. So that would be something to think on. So Howdles Bridge, I've mentioned this to your lead hand. Also Ford Crossing. The Howdles Bridge has a log jam in it right now. If that isn't removed in the spring, you're gonna have some serious trouble there. So I don't know if it could be done now. The hoe isn't too far away. the weather pertains, maybe that could be done and rip some of it out of there, but if not, it has to be addressed first thing in the spring. Along with, by the golf course, the Ford Crossing has some beaver feed beds there. The pipes that they're in front of are the fish ladder pipes. They have fins in them like this and like this, so you can't clean it out with anything. So that needs to be addressed too. Probably grate. You can't put grates over it because then the fish can't get through, so it's kind of 6-1-10 of the other. It's something that we always kind of just kept clean, so keep the fish running. So. Also, Road 172, down on, sorry, there's a pipe there. If it isn't, I do believe there's a grate on it. It should be ripped out of there if it could right now. Along with that, it really ruins Buster the Beaver's winter. If you drain it right now, he seems to move away or perish, one or the other. But if that happens to be, I'll maybe speak with Jared a bit and put that suggestion in his plate. So the whole happens to be going. If you can get it, you can get it. If you can't, you can't. So, talked with a few of the greater men, not all of the greater men, about creating a new area. Your area map is in over there, and if you look at it, it was kind of designed for grading, not so much as snow removal. What happens with snow removal, we get the far end, like there's a stretch there that's pretty near 16 miles long. Great if you're grading. If you're snow plowing and trying to clean an area up and you're also need to be back there, you got all that way. Areas of snow plowing should be as close a vicinity as you can. So that's something the greater men have all picked up on that. So they want to revamp that. So something I'll sit down with them a map and we'll draw it out one of these days and bring it for your approval. Oil samples. I do believe you need to start doing oil samples on some of your machines, like most of your graders. That big hole needs to be done. Those things, that's your tattletale. When I was here before, I had it on my phone, I'd get an alert, just instantly. You could go to JD Tracking is there, but I can't remember the price of it. I used to have it on my phone. If one overheats, I could tell what gear they were in, where they were, it's kind of a GPS thing, but it's not, they call it chicken tracks. It just pings every 4 hours, not constantly, but I really don't know if you need that, but something to think about. You'll see staff alignment there. Some of it is, again, goes back to the job description, but I think there's been some staff moved to different jobs and stuff, so you need to look at, are they staying there or aren't they moving there? Are we gonna go over here? Some of the greater men, I do believe, should be shifted a bit, so that's something we can speak on a little later. Your gravel crushing tenders should be revisited. Supposedly Cook Brothers has sent you a letter requesting that they carry on their tender as per price per 222. I do believe it's a pretty good price. I would suggest you stay with that. I tried to get a hold of the gravel haulers. I haven't been successful with that yet, but that's something that needs to be visited too soon, so you can get first to the trough is usually the best because they always want to load up with work right off the bat. So we'll keep. Your water treatment courses, there's a couple of your employees that are very interested in it. My thoughts on courses for staff are really good if they want to take it, but at the same time, they need to initiate something that they pay the municipality back. I don't know if you do it in a bonus form or something, but somebody could take a course and quit tomorrow and go down the road. I really honestly believe if you take a course, you should sign up that you're going to give 2 years service or something like that. Like, I mean, you put a lot of time and effort into these people taking these courses, and which is fine, but I mean at the same time they should step up to the plate too and offer, you know, their services for so many years. Pot and Drive, we spoke on that with Foreman. There needs to be, it was cleaned off once again. I think it's done again. It needs a real shot of sand, just one heavy coat to get it down. If the weather stays like this and they're able, again, give it a shot. So it just really hasn't got a real good shot yet because that road's so narrow if you travel it, and there is lots of traffic there, so that's kind of always been a priority. Safety in trucks and trailers, I talked to Jared a bit about that today, that you know you have to plan your attack, so it's not wait till spring. Also, holy smokes, we need all the trucks and they need safety, so it's something that he can line up with whoever you, Northview we used to use or whoever to get that done. orientation of equipment operators, I strongly suggest this needs to be done. There's been situations where there's operators put out there without any orientation, and again, I go back to that this is council's responsibility. If somebody gets hurt, the trouble will come to you. You're kind of under the microscope right now with OH&S. I think you need to make sure your ducks are in a row here for everything you do. Orientation doesn't take that long. Somebody needs, for instance, there's the fire extinguisher, there's the first aid. Here's the manual for the machine. Read it. So that needs to be looked at. I've looked at a proposal for a bylaw for your snow trapping. It's, and Pat can contest to this, to try find these people, if to get permission on which land it is really difficult. This person rents to that guy, this guy doesn't. And my idea would be propose a bylaw that you can trap on anybody's land unless they don't want you to. They should phone in. And again, I've talked to some farmers and they have some very valid points. Like some say, well, there's hills. We don't want to trap down there because it'll run down the hills and that's excellent. Yeah, we just need to know. But to try track all these people down where to trap is really difficult because land changes hands, or different renters. It's difficult. So I know there is other municipalities with bylaws like that, so maybe something could be looked into that. Cooks are willing to offer crushing in Big Woody. They're set up there right now. They got about 5 days left. It needs to be a yardage total decided if council wishes to crush there. Right, the trouble with Big Woody is a little light, I call it. Right now they're scalp screening off, and that's what they're predicting they're going to do. So when speaking with them, I told them that I would expect to do a test on them and that they would meet a traffic gravel spec of 25% crack, it's called. So per weight, every stone has a fraction on it. I think they'll get it at that. And the only reason I suggest that is because of your yardage. You're a little shy on some of your yardage. I'll explain here in a minute. Spoke with other contractors on other pits. I won't go there because it's kind of these secret pits they have. I also spoke to Mr. Graham. He's willing to sell gravel to you again. So again, I'll speak a little bit more about that later on. What I've seen with the safety right now, I'm suggesting you contract it out, hire somebody to do this, get your ducks in a row, and get it done. Because the girls in the office don't have the time, really, and there's a little bit of work. We did find a whole bunch today, so that kind of helps a bit, but I would suggest that there is capable people in the valley that could do it, and they're probably it's not going to cost that much. It would probably cost you more paying hours in here right now. So once you get that all in place, then you could be just reviewed once a year or something. Okay, referencing to gravel. As of December 31st, 2021, you had 34,377 cubic yards. You hauled 39,732, so you gained about 5,000 yards somewhere. So nearest I can find is that you bought approximately 5,000 yards from Cook Brothers Cartage at the Big Woody pit, and it was hauled out. So that's why you hauled more than you owned. Right now you're sitting on 22,361 yards, what I can find. Right now there's approximately 15,000 yards in Kane's, K pit it's called, Kalinowski pit in Saskatchewan, and there's about 7,400 yards in Kane's pit and about 1,600 yards of 1.5 inch in Kane's pit, which is more or less used for patching culverts. Is something that your gravel inventory, I shouldn't say your hauling inventory, doesn't even involve. So with that, you have some issues with where you're going to take this. If you take this gravel from Alpine, to haul it to Alpine from Kane's pit, I guess that was a suggestion why there's an extra 5,000 yards there. Right now you pay 20 cents a yard on your lease you have right there. That's it. I think there's 13.5 cents maybe for rehabilitation on there, but that goes on every pit. If you take it from K-pit, you're looking at approximately, it's $2.30 a yard in that pit, okay? By the time your dust all settles. Times 8 extra miles at 35 cents a mile, you're looking at $5.20 more per yard delivered to the same spot. So you're looking at another 25 grand for 5,000 yards. So my suggestion is you gotta go to Alpine and crush there. So that doesn't solve the problem. That's gonna be later in the year. But if your gravel starts, we used to try start them sometimes 1st of June because that's when the restrictions come off. So usually they're good to go. You would have to do a loop around this way. That would be the last part. If council accepts Cook's crushing tender, they would suggest that they'll take their jaw and roll, which is a commander, it's a smaller unit, and go to Alpine and crush there. And maybe you can supply right off the crusher too. Sometimes that, if they're not putting it in a pile, they either put it in a pile or in a truck, so you don't pay for loading. So you save there too, so. That all works fine and dandy if it's the guy, same guy hauling his crushing, but he can, if it isn't, that could be a little bit of a nightmare, so. So that's one of my suggestions there on that one. So right now, all your gravel's in that end. So to get back to that, you need to get some gravel at this end here. So my suggestion right now is to crush somewhere between 5 and 8 in the Big Woody pit. Look at going to Graham's. I talked to Mr. Graham. There is a good seam left there. There was supposed to be 20,000 yards crushed there. There was only 12, so they were short 8, but you got nothing there now. Mr. Graham wants a certain, his money is $2 a yard. I don't think it really matters. He don't care who knows it. The mileage difference from Big Woody to Graham's, by the time you pay the difference, is exactly the same. It's $3 a yard. So you're gonna pay one way or the other. And the reason I got to $3 a yard is he wants 2, and you're gonna need to bale that gravel. So in order to do that, you could bale it with your own hoe, which is usually, we always use $1 a yard. That thing should be able to bale 1,000 yards a day like nothing if it's digging. So they would said they would crush this winter if it was baled out. So that's a decision that should be made. So
How much you saying we should crush there?
you probably 8,000 yards if we go Big Woody, that can feed back and forth. If it went, everything went peachy, gravel doesn't rot, but I don't know if you budget 15,000 yards. That would pretty well clean the pit up.
15 a gram, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what Cook suggested there would be left there. I've also spoke with the Reeve of Minitonas. There's a seam of gravel not far from there, up to the north, that Minitonas actually owns. You'll see it on your map. It's a little thin strip. I was back in there with
Bush loans?
kind of kitty corner to it. I can't remember the name or
Tyler Mull?
Tyler Mull's the
Tyler Mull?
next one, which one other crushing out radar was in there from Birch River.
Right.
It's a little dirty looking, the gravel, but it's actually really good gravel. It packs like crazy. So there's something that maybe if you bump into the Reeve, I just asked him if he would be interested if they would sell gravel to this municipality if they, a crushing outfit went in there, if they took 2 piles, he did one and make it attractive for the crusher. So he's interested, but he has to probably speak to his council. So that's,
Is that good gravel though in that Graham pit though? Remember we
It's
used to
not
mix-
bad, yeah.
We used to mix clay in there, remember?
yeah, you won't get that in there this winter. No. They won't be able to get to the clay.
No, but we used to mix it.
Yeah, yeah. There's other issues with the clay, but
Where's the better gravel than the Grahams or the Woody, Big Woody?
Graham's,
Grahams?
I would suggest. Yeah. And again, I don't know what the Cooks are gonna, this is something we spoke of for years, that we should be scalp screening that gravel in Big Woody. It comes at a cost. You're gonna take some of the sand off, get your crack count up and go like that. It's not, that's probably one of the cleanest gravel ridges in Manitoba right there, so it is pretty clean, and that's the trouble. But I mean, traffic gravel is traffic gravel, so I mean, that means it's there for the maintenance of it, and it's not base, so. But I mean, and again, with K-Pit there having such a large volume of gravel sitting in it, and if you go to Alpine, that's gonna sit there for 2 years. My suggestion to that is you're gonna if you're gonna haul a distance, haul it the back way over Thunder Hill 172 right to the other end to branch off of it. That whole area has been fed from Big Woody all its life. That would top it off, especially 172. That's your main road out of there. There's lots of traffic down that road that would really complement that one. So there's different ways. Like I said, I'll go to the gravel maps, and once you get the maps and the pitch determined, then you draw the circle around. You go from this pit, you go to that pit, and stuff like that. So, but it's kind of an ongoing thing. So I don't know. Right now, you're usually looking at 40,000 yards to haul out. You have 22. So you add 18 to get back up there, and you need 40 because you're crushing this year for 24. So that's 60,000 yards. Whether you want to do 50 and skip 10, you know what I mean? It's not that it has to be there, but you're a little shy. So if you keep up by the looks of your roads, you're gonna need it. Yeah. Plus your own trucks probably haul 5,000 yards a year. So you have to take that into consideration too. So. Just other things, the question is, I think you should be looking at a new half ton or some kind of work truck. You got some pretty old trucks going up and down the road there, so it's not saying you need to buy a new one, but they're pretty bad. Some are leaning, some are leaking.
That's the half ton. How about the dually? Are you talking about the dually too, or just the?
You know, the only thing I can see that dually's any good if you ever wanted to step forward and buy a sander and put it in and be done with it. I don't know what you have a dually for. I really don't know what you're carrying around. And you can't say anything against that little Dodge. It's a 2013. It's done well, done really well. So I mean, it isn't gonna last forever.
No. You start fixing.
Your dust control, I kind of investigated a little bit about that. I watched it this year from what I seen of it. I don't know what rate was put on at, but the normal rate you usually run is 1.4 liters per square meter, is what you used to put on forever. Fort distributors will tell you the perfect scenario is 1.8 per square liter. That is on a 8-foot spread. What I've done in the past is run 1.2 to 212s. On your calcium sites that are heavy traffic areas, what happens is on your road, if you do 2.8s, your roads are approximately 22 feet wide, sometimes 24. If you do 2.8s, you got 16 feet, you got leftover, and the theory is it always leaks to the outside. Well, it doesn't always leak to the outside, and what happens is the grader needs to touch that up in the middle, then he brings contaminated soil in from the outside. To do 212s down the middle, spray everything, then he's got something to work with, so that needs to be done. What I nearest can figure out is your budget was 180,000 liters, and you did 220. You were 42,000 over your budget, which is lots. But at the same time, I don't know what the spray rate is. I would have to talk to Willie at Ford Distributors, which I have no problem talking to Willie. I've had good rapport with him over the years, so just to make sure that when you go, you need somebody in the truck that has an idea where you're going, because there was lots missed too. So, well, I know the Hall Road 216 coming out on the highway, we always did that because those trucks, there's lots of grain trucks there. Mm-hmm. The dust rolls out on the highway. It's a nightmare waiting to happen. So there was lots of other places. But then some places I seen are like, it was strong, like really strong. There's places where are done every year that is fine. There's places where I'll use Spruce Products, for instance. There's lots of traffic in there, but it's not fast traffic. So once you've done it, you don't need to load it up every time. Then again, you go to the other way and you go to Pioneer, that gets beat to nothing. It needs to be done twice a year and heavy. So there's little tricks to the trade over the years. So something that needs to be looked at. And that's about it, I guess.
And Pioneer should be done May 1st, if you can swing it.
Again, it all kind of boils around restrictions, you know what I mean? They don't want to come up here and spray one load. You might get that from Willie if he's going somewhere else. He'll come and touch it up for you, but that's usually the first thing we do is that.
When it comes in July, that's too late for the first run, like they got grain and hydrous, everything coming out of here.
I've never had no trouble with, as long as you contact him far enough ahead, you plan with him. He's very easy to work with, not a problem. So yeah, they've been really excellent to work with. I don't know if you got the letter, but years ago, last year, you were supposedly got it. I don't know if you can find it now, but you got a letter from Fort Distributors that this municipality was one of 2 municipalities in Manitoba that was appreciated by Fort Distributors on the application, how we used to do it. So they sent a letter thanking everybody. So I don't know if you ever seen that but I met Willie at the AMM in Winnipeg, which I've dealt with him for 8 years, and I finally bumped into him. So, yeah, so there's a tricks to the trade here, but I don't know if you're looking at any capital works projects this year. That's something that if you want to budget for, I don't know if council has any ideas. That's
Where do you look for these grants that pop up once in a while? Like, I mean, is that?
what, as in capital works projects?
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna be using gas tax money for that.
There's unfortunately none left.
Okay, stroke that off the list.
Don't stroke that off the list.
Okay, I don't know if council wishes me to be involved in the Reels Hill or not. Like I said before, I don't have no problem with that. I think there is some ideas there. I kinda know some of the yardages. I know where that yardage could come from, but I wouldn't speak on it in public here where that stuff could come from. There's a way of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. And I've been approached already by certain people.
I would think council will provide the direction we want you involved
Okay.
with that project.
And that's about it, I guess, so.
Okay.
Question?
Do you have questions on this part, or I suspect your questions are going to quickly delve into things that need to be in camera. So if it pleases the group, let's take our recess for a few minutes, and then we will go in camera and continue that discussion.
There's one more thing you can add to that.
Resolutions arising from in-camera discussions. 13.3.1. We're gonna go really fast and see if we can wrap this up yet by 11. Be it resolved that the CAO be authorized to respond to the 2 union grievances discussed, and that the response shall be as council indicated in camera. A mover. Councillor Zbirun, a seconder. Councillor Burick. Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. 13.3.2, gravel crushing. Be it resolved that we approve the crushing of 8,000 yards at the Big Woody Pit and 15,000 yards at the Graham Pit. Is there somebody who would like to move that? Moved by Councillor Burick. Is there a seconder? Councillor McGregor. Discussion on this. This was a recommendation from our consultant that we need to do this crushing and we need to do it as quickly as possible so we have inventory for gravel this coming summer. Any other discussion? Not, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. 13.3.3, building security. Be it resolved that we change the locks on municipal shops and provide keys to the appropriate employees. Is there a mover? Councillor Zbirun, a seconder. Councillor McGregor, this is another recommendation from our consultant. Any other discussion on it? Not, those in favor? That is carried. 13.3.4. Be it resolved that we hire Lisa Boyko as finance officer with the understanding the job will be part-time to start and become full-time as mutually agreed. The probation period shall be 6 months, full-time equivalent employment. Is there a mover? Councillor Burick, is there a seconder? Councillor Zbirun. Any discussion on the resolution? Okay, now we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. We welcome Ms. Boyko to the municipality. Is there any further motions that anyone wishes to bring resulting from in camera or other items tonight? Hearing none, is there any notices of motion to be presented tonight? If not, I have a resolution for adjournment. Is there any further business of council before we adjourn? Be it resolved, this meeting shall now adjourn at 11 p.m. Be it further resolved, the next meeting is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 at 7 p.m. A mover, please. By Councillor Zbirun, a seconder. Councillor McGregor, any discussion? Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you everyone for the evening.
See y'all next year.